Good evening, everybody. System Chalk here with the 225th episode of Book of Hours, our first run through YouTube, playing as the artist. Picasso? I'll give you Picasso. Data was a start. The Surrealist Manifesto? A step along the road, but only a step. The road goes nowhere unless it goes into the wood. And that's not a road we can walk. And that's a road we can only walk in the dark. Wait, no, not in the dark. In blood. Hip deep in blood. Oh, shut up. Give it to me. I'll write it. The artist came to Hush House to shape and share a history of primal, ultimate, unprecedented experience. But you can complete the game by recording any history. You might wish to begin your studies with the Bosque Wisdom. So we hit a point. I actually had a little bit of a think about this between recordings, and we're at a point where we can make a determination in the journal. And one thing I was thinking of is sort of showing all of the different determinations, and that was going to be something I originally wanted to do with the Tree of Wisdoms as well. And I was sort of thinking of this, and I thought, well, I don't think we've seen every alternative in the Tree of Wisdoms, and that would take quite a bit of time. It's impossible now because we've just simply committed things to the Tree of Wisdoms. And likewise, if I were to go through the different, the different Newman, repeated or in sort of a repetitive way, I guess the question would be, what do we learn? Because some of these are actually things that have already been revealed in some of the books. But on top of that, like, is there a benefit to sort of removing all of the mysteries from the game? And my inclination is to say no. I actually think that probably it would be nice to sort of leave some things for future playthroughs. So the way I've decided that I'm going to do it is this. It's like when I have a fairly clear idea on what I would want to do for a determination, I'm going to write that in the journal. And then when there is some uncertainty, what I might do is take a look at what some of the other options are. So for instance, in this case here, we have our journal. We can take transformations and liberations, and we can take the merciless alteration. And if we add the orpiment exultant, we have red the first flower. The watchman's tree is the covenant that forbids knowledge to mortals, but permits it in the covenant houses of the tree, like Brandkrugile. The red flower of Calyptra, the fire fueled by truth, is its first defense. Fire consumes knowledge, but fire also gives light. The tree is rooted in paradox. So it seems to me here, right, based off of... Now, I always like, whenever I play a role-playing game, and I'll include this inside of that category, I like to have an idea in the back of my head about sort of who this person is and what types of decisions that they would make. And in this particular case, I'm actually going to go for a slightly lower forge. Although Bells and Braziers is probably too low. Yeah. So I don't think I have a good middle ground. This'll do. So the question here, what are the other two, right? So we have the black flower, which is the sort of the keeping of secrets through covering them. And then we have the white flower, which is silence. And so this idea of someone who is creating sort of an ultimate unprecedented experience would seem to me that probably the red flower would be the most consistent among those, at least in terms of sort of how I'm conceiving this. Now, keep in mind that the game will permit you to make any determination you want. You are also not limited to the histories that it says you get a unique one for the artist. What I'm really doing here is just sort of saying I think it's more interesting to get the unique endings for the particular journal that you have. And of course, with that in mind, right, we have 3 different aspects for the 2. So there's 6 unique endings for the artist. I'm going to have to pick one of those. But in this case here, I would say that the way that I'm imagining this individual, I think red is a pretty clear one if I were to make a decision in terms of what the first flower is. So with that in mind, I will make the determination with the red flower. And if I get a chance to talk about the black or the white, okay, fair enough. We'll work with that. But I'm not gonna feel sort of an urgency, let's say, to get those particular ones in the list so I can see what those alternatives were. Okay, so with that in mind, I'm now down an orpiment exultant. So I'll try and take the time. I think transformations and liberations should let me do this. Yep, we just need an iotic essence, which we have here. So transform the essence into the Incastum Terminale Orpiment Exultant. And I'll bring back a forge just in case I need it. Certainly we have plenty of money. It is winter, and the storms have tightened the seas. I am sitting before the fire in the sweet bones with a beef and potato pasty in one hand and a hot ale posset in the other. Let us hope it is equally possible to forget this again. If there are laws which apply only in Dream, then it must also be that there are crimes which can only be committed there. Okay, so let's think about the next step. I guess it's really just a question of waiting for the relevant books at this point, although I guess with the memory contradiction... oh, hang on. Sorry, I've got a list here. Okay. Sorry, just I have a note here of persistent memories that I forgot I put down. All right, so Edicts Inviolable will be available in 90 seconds for me. Now that was going to require 1, 2, 3, 4. Yikes! I'm 5 memories short on that. So perhaps it would be smart for me to start working on the Hill and Hollow, maybe? Problem with that one is I'm still short on that, actually. Okay, you know what? I'm going to stick with the plan because I actually don't miss out on any memories. The only memory that I got from the Newman text was the Newman, so. Oriflammes, thanks you for your custom. All right, so let's read the Ceaseless Tantra really quick. That one I will take up here. Use a fet. Some irony of using weaving and not working, but there you have it. I can master this mystery, enough heart to match mystery heart. Okay, moving on. Don't really have that much left with Mrs. Kill. Well, you know what? I think I'm just going to accept that maybe we get less done today than I wanted, and we will make sure that we feed all the beasties. And then there we go. I'm the librarian of Hush House, and I have made my determination. If you are considering a forge history, the From Nowhere origin is relevant, or if you're considering a rose history, Speech the Key is relevant. So you can see here that we've added the new aspects to the journal, and it also has the note here about the determination I made on the first flower. I'm going to have to start making some choices with regards to the how I spend my remaining time, but I'm going to push to the bitter end. Yeah. Actually, there is one thing that I can do here. So if the plan here is to, so if it's going to be Edicts Inviolable and then Hill and Hollow, what I can do is I can start bringing in any of the scale stuff that I want. So for Edicts Inviolable, let's say we'll set aside a core for leveling that up. And for Hill and Hollow, so Scale and Moon are what count there. I've already got Contradiction, so I'm not doing anything with that. Regrets Winter, so that doesn't work. I think at this point we'll use the sorts of things that Mrs. Kill might give us, just because I'm not going to have that much time to talk with her. I'll set aside actually I'll set aside 2 Tris just as an insurance policy. Actually, I don't like that. Sorry, I'm indecisive today. Okay, carrying on. Gossip doesn't really help me. Fear does, though. So we will read the Sevenfold Slaying of the Seven Coiled. Hindsight is also relevant. I believe... Oh, we don't have a storm memory yet. Okay. Presumably a Solace would not be a bad one to follow up with. I'm trying to remember if Secret Thresholds... I think that's a Knock and a Rose one. So I'm limited on my choices here, but Orchid Transfigurations ought to do the trick. And then we have, I believe it's just Caller's Desk, well, and the Consider verb, but... so we've already got our Earth Sign, more patterns, we've already got our Cheerful Ditty. We should have a Confounding Parable, yeah. Already have the Salt. So our last options, Beguiling Melodies don't help us, Revelation doesn't help us. The Savage Hymn does, though. And this is in Sabazine. So the only real drawback here is that I didn't have enough space for another another book that houses a Newman, but we can do that in a minute. And these are Stolen Secrets, but we should already have... Oh, I don't have a Stolen Secret. Okay, well that gives me an obvious one to read next. Sea-strewn, salt-snared stuff. The temptation is definitely to open this up, but I'm going to want the Consider verb for a number of different things. One last pipe shrill, and the wind is still. Wind and waiting. When the sun was redder, when the world was softer, and the 30 ruled the sky, the winds were better neighbors. Okay, so I'm happy to have this, although I am going to need to bring back the Daidumos. Part of this, though, is just the effort to get as many persistent memories before the next Numa. So for this, we'll do... actually, I guess we just read this, so deaths and their evasions. Oh, that's Fusine, never mind. Gleanings from the darkness. Okay, so that fear gives me something to work with. I think what I'll do here, just in the interests of packing away as much as I can on time, we'll use the Hill and Hollow. So this is eventually going to become a 7. So if I do... Well, it's a little early. Yeah, I can't actually do that. Never mind. I'll try to be patient. Alright, so again, we don't have that much we can get from Mrs. Kill, but a full belly makes a helpful friend. Mrs. Kill has seen more of the world than she usually lets on. Conversations with her yield the occasional surprise. This is an Incastum Terminale, one of the great inks. Use it with your journal to record a history and fulfill your reason for coming to Hush House, if you so choose. Okay, so, the Orchid Transfiguration's a feast, a compilation of quasi-Rosicrucian allegories, supposedly by Robert Flood. This is in the original Latin. The illustrations are certainly striking. They flush the skin and glow beneath the eyelids after the book is closed. We must devour to be devoured. We cannot be undevoured as we cannot be unborn. So, intuition? You just know, you know? The world does not weep. Brown Joshua found this in a well in Hamath. There's an unlikely story that it was abandoned by Alexander during his retreat from Issus. The unknown adept who wrote this proclaims, "The world forgets, but the ivory dove does not." The text contains a number of prescriptions for ensuring that certain acts are remembered, including a rite which requires a sacrifice in a particularly monstrous mode. The Hours tried to bury the memory of what happened to the wheel, the flint, the tide, and the 7 coiled, but the dove won't permit it. Nor will he permit what happened to the first egg to be forgotten, although it is perhaps the one thing that the Watchman might ever forgive. Hindsight, some things we can only really understand when they're gone. What does not bark? Alexander Probst writes warily of Calyptra, a law or principle or society which prevents the dissemination of dangerous knowledge. Calyptra, like the planet that occludes the star or the Doylean dog that fails to bark, can be identified only by its absence. Even the name, I think, must be a mask. Calyptra is said to make exceptions specifically for the libraries of the Watchman's Tree. Does it make those exceptions so the Hours can make use of them? The Orchid Transfiguration's Noon, the 3rd volume of a compilation of quasi-Rosicrucian allegories, supposedly by Robert Flood. This is in the original Latin. A long dialogue between the Mountain Mother and the Vigilant Storm describes the ways in which both mountains and storms end, and the protections they use against those ends. "But we must use the knife," said the lion-throned one, "the noose, the flame, the waking word against those who have passed the 3-valve door, and so none may pass. That is our law and the law of the sun." Unhatched hymns. Hymns attributed to St. Lucia the Eyeless, patron of glassworkers, and name of the hour called Menascate. The hymns venerate every sanctioned hour, celebrating them as the sun undivided, but also suggesting that each hour may become the next, madrigad to watchman, watchman to wolf, and so on. The hymn of the phases celebrates the Menascate, from whom we do not turn, for the truth which is beauty, the beauty which is truth, and the perfect balance between the two. The hymn of the Reflections, more puzzlingly, celebrates the Menascate as sister of Janus, mother of shadow, whose visage wondrous in emptiness can reveal all truths. Savage Hymn, a music that urges valor and violence. The Sevenfold Slaying of the Seven Coiled, an account of the destruction of a primeval hour, a god who was stone. There are 12 verses, and the first, an ascendant hour identified as the Scarred One, enumerates his justifications for destroying the Seven Coiled, its appetites, its growth, its enmity to humanity. In the second, a priestess puts out his eyes and scars his skin to protect him against the Seven Coiled's magics. In each of the next 7 verses, he destroys one aspect of the Seven Coiled. In the 10th verse, the Scarred One bathes his priestess patron in the blood of the Seven Coiled to lend her power. In the 11th, they assault the temple behind the world, entering it by force. In the 12th, they swear a tripartite oath to protect their ancestors, their descendants, and themselves. The oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear, and the oldest and strongest kind of fear is fear of the unknown. Okay, so let's see if we can get a little bit of... I guess I ruined the 2 that I set aside, but let's see if we can get a little bit of mileage on leveling up Hill and Hollow. So we only need 5 memories here. So we need to make sure that I focus on the scale ones first. So that would be the Fear, the Savage Hymn, and the Hindsight. And then from here, what I'll do is I'll use 2 moon ones, but I'll make sure that I get myself some replacement moon when the time comes. And in fact, what I'll do here, I'll use the intuition, seeing as that is something that Mrs. Kill may wind up giving me. So we'll use the sharps. At last, I am something of an authority in this. Improve the skill to level 6. So keeping in mind that we're going to be improving Edict's Inviolable, let's just double check what we have to get from 7 to 8. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5... Okay, so I really only need 2 more. So one of those is definitely going to be a... definitely going to be salt, because we can't get that back any other way. And then... I'm trying to think if I want to try and get a Didymos. I'll go window shopping. I'll see if that's maybe a possibility here. Right. So I guess in this case I'll get the intuition. I think I'm probably just going to be duplicating effort at this point, but yep, with the 7 we're fine. Of course, now is not a bad time for me to think about an alternative Newman. So let me just take a look at some of my options here. Weaving the World would actually be an interesting choice here. All right, so we'll read that. Actually, I guess you read that at Nona's desk. That's the Copulate Themphalos. Okay. I don't really have much in the way of sky desks anymore, so how do I think I would get a Didymos? Well, let's not rule it out. Let's just see. Yeah, so I would need... Well, you have it with the snow. Okay. Yeah, I think this is a good idea because it's not that hard to get an Ascendant Harmony back. And of course, we'll still have the Hill and Hollow to level up tomorrow, but we'll have an opportunity to get the memories. That's not that big of a worry. There it is in Camino Tizzer. Mrs. Kill, as every local gossip knows, came from France to marry Mr. Kill, but there's scant trace of the continent in her accent now. Mrs. Kill has seen more of the world than she usually lets on. Conversations with her yield the occasional surprise. Alright. The account of Kanishk at the Spider's Door. Loch Cowley, Kanishk's victim and lover, wrote this account, perhaps posthumously. Kanishk sought to become a name. In pursuit of that end, he made Loch Cowley the vessel of his appetites, promising Loch that they would ascend together. At the Spider's Door, he betrayed his lover. The Chiliarch listened to it happen and then forced Kanishk into his service. The Chiliarch cannot be denied. Loch Cowley remained to write this work and to describe the outer magics of struggle and conquest. So we're actually up one more than I thought. Not enough to change anything, but nice to have a little extra. The skill is now level 6. Its power aspects have also increased. So really what I'm trying to do here is get as much mileage as I can out of this season. We're basically done for books that we can use to level up our various skills, but we've done a decent enough job all told. The Ceaseless Tantra. The avant-garde choreographer Nicholas Carey supposedly incorporated this tantra into his menacing ballets. The Ceaseless Tantra is devoted mostly to warnings about the lively creatures called percussagants, but concludes that with a chant that can be used to summon them. It observes that percussagants can be taught any dance, but they prefer only one. That which does not cease is not ceased. So we get an impulse for our trouble. Weaving and not working, which we will use with the Edicts Inviolable. And we'll add this to the impulse shelf. So we're 6 of 7, so I need one more memory. I could use the old wound, but I'm not going to worry about it. Alright, To a Pale Lady, a collection of Franklin Bancroft's letters to Ava de Wolf. There's a substantial body of erotic pleading and half-finished poetry, but also learned discussions on matters mythical and marine, as well as notes towards a comic opera on which Franklin and Ava were apparently collaborating. Do not return, O my light, to the sea. None of us can be what we were. That is history's curse. None of us can know what we may be. That is history's gift. Your mothers and the mothers of your mothers are caught in eternity's jaws like a robe hem in a trap. It is the pearl that shines, but the tide that returns. Sea spray, depth sorrow. Coprolithymphalos. What is this? A tufted fossil of silken fiber, big as a child. Something consumed and something was consumed. If we interpret its interweavings, we might understand. The meaning of this object isn't something that one reads, but rather something that one follows, until at last one has passed 3 times around it, and one finds the meaning waiting at one's shoulder. Newman weaving the world. The histories, they say, are braided like hair or tangled like roots. What is the shape of that knot? Funny you should ask. Any librarian can use this to establish a history and complete the game, but the Simmergist and the cartographer can win a particular victory. And the collected Hush House lectures. In the 1800s, Dr. Aaron Peel was invited to give a series of lectures to the Curia. They combine his pithy view of the histories with his particular brand of unhelpfully ironical insight. 1776, the third history. Louis declares the Mask of Masks and forbids mention of the great writhing within the walls of the Palace of Versailles, although by this point worms are observed to move openly among the boulevards of Paris, sometimes even in daylight. The army is redeployed to defend the court. The mask lasts 1 lunar month and attracts several of long abroad in Western Europe at the time, fleeing the worms, or hoping to take advantage of the desperate Louis, or seeking access to the sealed mirrors of the palace, or just eager to attend the most inventive and desperate debauch of the century. Many espouse wormish sympathies. Let 100 histories flourish, tear down the tyranny of eternity. To grow long is usually to cast off these sympathies. There would be no immortality without eternity, and eternity, we often seem to decide, is only tyranny as long as we are not eternal. Okay, so the first thing that I want to do here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I only need 7 to level this thing up. So I would like to carry one of these overnight with me. And I actually think the salt would be a good one. But the first thing I want to do is make sure that Edicts Inviolable gets leveled up. So we're going to do that first. And I'm also going to double check because I did overdo it on Auroral Contemplations. Yes, we do want to take Edicts Inviolable up to 8. So with that, we will use Weaving and Not Working, Core. So Cheerful Ditty, Confounding Parable, Contradictions, Solace, Storms, Stolen Secret, and Intuition. At last, I approach mastery. Sleep on the salt. Now that night has fallen, I can rest and perhaps dream on the day's doings. All right, and we'll pass over into the next day. So I'm not going to do anything else for this session. I just want to set myself up for the next video. But in terms of tomorrow's plans, we will see what our options are with Weaving the World. If nothing else, so one reason I chose Weaving the World is because it does have that moon aspect. So if I don't like my options, I can still use that to level up Hill and Hollow. Of course, there would also be an argument for Scale 1 as well, but that's neither here nor there. We'll want to get our Ascendant Harmony back. The skill is now level 8. Its power aspects have also increased. The precepts of occlusion and dissolution, their jealous enforcement is the nature of a Calyptra. I'm going to take a quick minute here and just edit my note. Okay. So yeah, we'll get the Ascendant Harmony back. What else? I will level up Hill and Hollow. Okay, so it looks like I'm down my Frost, but that's fine. We'll live with that. And yeah, I think tomorrow we will make another determination. Or at the very least, we'll make a gesture towards another determination. So, as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.